Thanks for subscribing to and downloading Plant Talk with your host, Fred Howard. Plant Talk is sponsored by HYGROWPONICS, your local indoor gardening supplier. HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. Now, here's your host, Fred Howard.
Good morning, Ohio gardeners. Last week, as I mentioned, we had a severe clear, beautiful, absolutely magnificent sunrise. This morning, we have a severe overcast, at least here in Columbus. It's not nasty yet. It has warmed, which is pleasant, but it's just kind of confounding. The quarry that was freezing over when I came by last Saturday morning is absolutely like a warm mirror face today. There wasn't a breeze to ripple that entire body of water. And here we are with, let's call it midwinter. I don't mind the cold, so I tend to be opposed by others. But at the same time, it hasn't been cold enough to put on my big heavy coat yet, in a way. Now, let's not go too far, Fred. It got down there pretty cold at one point. But I don't know. I wonder if in the human health situation, aside from plants, I wonder if it's getting cold enough to kill off the bugs. Not insects, but the human bugs. One of the schools here in town is shut down. 200 students, 60 absent,
yeah.
I believe was the case. Wow. But as far as the plant world is concerned, the only thing that's confused is the robins. My community has had a flock of robins. There must be at least 40 birds. They seem to be paired up half and half or thereabouts, and they move through the neighborhood gleaning dried and drying fruit, frozen fruit that's still a little mushy. It's been soft enough. I think they're pulling up a worm out of the ground here and there. I think those poor suckers are really confused. Now, they're due back along about this time, but they're just not not acting like they know what to do. They land in a tree, and part of the flock flies on, part sits there, some still eating. I stepped outside at one point, and I'll call it squawking, bird sounds, robin sounds, were, I didn't have to put stoppers in my ears, but they were making an awful lot of noise, and I think telling each other where the next harvest was going to be.
I think they probably know.
I think they know. They've psyched out the whole neighborhood for sure, but we're into an interesting winter. We'll see what happens. I hope, as I would put it, I hope we don't get paybacks in March for the rather warm winter we've had. Now, if you are coming from trying to get to the East Coast, and 5,000, I think, flights were shut down because it couldn't move enough snow fast enough. Now, that's a whole different story. But right here in Ohio, it's all been pushing on through, headed their direction. So I guess I'm quite comfortable here in central Ohio, because we've not really had a nasty one yet.
I haven't had my shovel out much, let's put it that way. Sitting alongside Fred Howard, I am Mark Noose in our Plant Talk studios, and if you'd like to join the conversation this morning, you're always welcome to give us a call, 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's, or 1-866-752-6882. And Fred, what are you seeing in color?
Well, actually, real color this week. I'm not sure which day because I kind of missed it, but I looked out on Wednesday, and I have two general types of witch hazel in my yard. The one that I always celebrate with my birthday, beautiful yellow flowers, and roughly the 1st of October, etc. And then this year, I think there were enough buds to literally cause everything on that plant to disappear from view except the flower petals. It is one that is showing off really proper right now. And I'm going to tell you that it's espaliered against a fence in the backyard. And I think we talked about espalier either last week or the week before. We'll get back more into that as to how I do it. But it's up against a gray fence. Those beautiful golden flowers are quite significant right now.
And you're seeing some snowdrops.
Snowdrops, yes. I went out to pick up a piece of paper that had blown, of course, from my neighbor's yard into mine sometime in the recent past. And as I leaned down, there were little white specks on the ground, so to speak. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
6 inches tall and saluting me at this point. So things are happening.
Once again, our toll-free number, 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's. We're just getting started. Fred's Plant of the Week is up next. We're glad you joined us this morning for Plant Talk.
With winter weather here, it's time to start your indoor gardening with the right supplies and gardening expertise from HYGROWPONICS in Hilliard. Whether you're a first-time gardener or a lifelong enthusiast, they're here to help you. HYGROWPONICS offers eco-friendly and organic equipment and advice to make your indoor gardening a success. Find out more on their website, HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. That's HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. You can also find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with links on their website. HYGROWPONICS, your local gardening supplier.
And welcome back to the show. Mark Neuse here alongside Fred Howard, the Ohio nurseryman. And Fred, your plant of the week.
Well, I've mentioned it, and that is the vernal witch hazel, as a common name is concerned. Now, get ready to write this down. Hamamelis vernalis. I got Mark's attention at least. Don't worry about that. However, there are 2 major categories, well, actually more, but 2 major categories of witch hazel. I like the plant because of its durability. It's a native, well, some new cultivars by man's help, but at the same time, it's a native plant. You find it in the lowland. You find it up a little higher. You find it in understory situations where the forest has aged. The branches are at 30 or more feet above the ground, so there's high ambient light and not much sunshine in that area, and the plant thrives. And then you go up the hill, you get into the sunshine, and the plant still thrives. It is a plant that you can find between 6 and 10 feet tall, and then the occasional giant in that characteristic is going to be 12 to 15 feet tall. The plant is beautiful right now. It is a goldish color. It's not a vibrant yellow. So all I can do is hope that I placed it right. And when the wood fence is dry, it's a light gray. And that gold against that with branch pattern and all is really, really something. The fruit, which we don't really worry about, it's there. It doesn't open until September and October, right before, call it snowfall. The flowers are a pungent fragrance. I don't think it's anything you would buy for that purpose. But one of the things that is kind of fun, I don't need a thermometer to a certain degree. The other morning when it was so very cold, the petals had rolled up just like a kid's toy that you blow in and zap the thing out. Then when it warms up, they hang down. And I can look from my kitchen window and tell, I can't tell the roll, but I can tell whether I see more branch pattern or not. And if it's warm, and let's just say like this morning, the 40-ish, those petals are out long and so on. I don't know whether you're familiar with watching them, but rhododendron leaves will roll up like a cigar when it gets really, really cold. It's a trick of nature. I don't know that it has purpose, but let's just say the survivors that we're enjoying do that, so there must be some mechanical reason for them to be in good shape. Then, as it comes to cultivars, and it's a plant that I'd like you to look for to round out that color that we can have for 12 months. Remember now, the other witch hazel didn't bloom until mid-October, so all of a sudden here we are, essentially 1st of February, and that kind of plant is in bloom, one of its characteristics. You'll find them in the garden center sometimes under Hamamelis X intermedia. Don't worry about that. It's one of man's combinations. Nature can do it too, but man can step in there. And then you get another whole array of flower colors, shapes of plants, and so on. They're normally on the multiple-stemmed, short, broad range of character, which kind of typifies my appearance, and that's kind of, I guess, why I feel so much akin to it. Yeah. Short and broad.
Okay.
But anyhow, it's a wonderful plant to extend the color, and then it will give you a plant for the shade, and it also can go out in the sun. Now, if you have an option, I would put it into full morning sun. Hot afternoon sun isn't its best thing, but at the same time, it'll tolerate that because mine does. So there you are, a vernal witch hazel in bloom right now. The first thing to show color, even before the, Lenten rose. It's even earlier than the Lenten rose. But by next week, I'll bet that if it stays these temperature ranges, we'll be seeing that one also.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we did get an email this week at planttalkradio.com. Just go to the website and click on the Ask Fred button, or you can email Fred directly. It's fred@planttalkradio.com. And it was from Bob, and he says, Fred, here's something you can add to your What's in Color list. The winter's been so mild, I had a daffodil pop up and bloom last week.
Now, that must be an old cluster of plants with one really hardy membrane.
I mean, mine are up, but there's nothing blooming.
Right. Mine are only up 2-3 inches right now, and that's, I guess I would call that common. But to have one up and in bloom, I hope he took a dated picture of that as just a matter of fun. And then, Bob, kind of hang on to that notion, and next year, come February 1, be checking to see if it comes up again, depending on the circumstances. It would be nice to know of a plant that is that hardy, and on rare occasion, somebody finds something like that, and then it becomes, let's just say, part of their financial background when they do the right things with it.
I tell you what, Fred, to heck with the groundhog. Let's just go ahead and start spraying now.
I think we should.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I really think
Absolutely.
we should. Yes.
But that does bring up an interesting topic.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people always ask you this question this time of year. Oh, my gosh, my bulbs are coming up. What's going to happen when it freezes? Well, the answer is really kind of nothing.
That's right. Not really. Now, there will be the occasion where it gets deeply raw temperature, and the tops that are up 2-3 inches, whatever, can burn. Now, by that meaning that the sun, with no snow cover, whatever, the sun can burn that tip. However, even though it might spoil the tip of the foliage, the flower bud, usually, except for Bob's, is usually still down in the ground deep enough that it won't be harmed. So, there's just nothing. Now, if you had a favorite clump, something you wanted to guard, some of what I call little bulbs and so on, you could put some mulch up over them very lightly, straw very lightly. Don't pack anything down, because all you're trying to do is slow down the change of temperature. You can't change the whole, the whole degree thing. But I'd say by and large, just enjoy the green that you see.
If you missed one of our Plant Talk radio programs, you'd like to listen to it again, just go to our website, planttalkradio.com. We have our programs on there. Also, you can sign up for our weekly podcast and our podcast questions, which we put up on iTunes or your favorite podcast subscriber. Just go there, subscribe, and you get those every week as well. More from Fred Hauer coming up next on Plant Talk. Our toll-free number, 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's. That's 1-866-752-6882.
With winter weather here, it's time to start your indoor gardening with the right supplies and gardening expertise from HYGROWPONICS in Hilliard. Whether you're a first-time gardener or a lifelong enthusiast, they're here to help you. HYGROWPONICS offers eco-friendly and organic equipment and advice to make your indoor gardening a success. Find out more on their website, HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. That's HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. You can also find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with links on their website. HYGROWPONICS, your local gardening supplier.
And welcome back to the program. Mark Neuse here alongside Fred Hauer, the Ohio nurseryman. And Fred, let's go to the phone lines at 1-866-PLANT-TALK. And our buddy Dan from Zanesville's on the line with us. Good morning, Dan.
Morning, guys. Thank you for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
I have a question about trimming spirea.
Okay.
I generally do that mid-March, late March, but with some of the weather that we're having, if I have an opportunity to get out there, is it too early to trim that now?
No, in a simple word, Dan, it is not. Not in my opinion, because the plant has been dormant since, let's just say, late November, December. I would say to divide up the effort in the garden, go ahead and trim the plant now when you have time and other things aren't pressing so much. Now, for those, let's just say, that are listening with us, you can prune now, today. You can prune in a week or two. I would definitely have it done before late March, early April, because you want to trim it in my opinion, every other year at least. You want to trim it pretty darn hard. I've been known to take it down to ankle high in any of several of the varieties because the plant flowers, as you are aware, Dan, on new growth. And anytime we can get in at this point of the year and do that pruning, we're going to be able to set the plant up for all brand new growth, and it should come on long and strong, so to speak. Now, I don't mean tall necessarily, but at the same time, there will be new growth coming, that low tissue. And the worst possible thing would be to wait until it starts to grow, has expended all that energy to get going, and then cut it down. So I said every other year. You could cut a spirea down every year. I usually figure on dividing my labor up, much like you're thinking, get it done now, and then every other year is quite enough. But at the same time, depends on your plants. And definitely, Dan, if you've got the pruners in your hand, wait until 9:01 and then go on out there and trim them.
Yeah. Hey, if I wanted to apply some fertilizer, should I do that later in March, though, or now?
Dan, that's a hard one to answer. I don't see any reason you couldn't put it on now, but at the same time, you do have a whole month before it would be really critical. However, if you're using a slow-release material that is going to react only when the temperature is up and moisture in the ground and so on, you could put it down now. I don't see any reason why you'd have to do it, but I don't think if while you're out there in that part of the yard doing the spirea on the top, I don't see why you couldn't fertilize in general, because the temperatures, even though fluctuating like crazy here recently, they're going to stay basically cool, so I don't think you get any plant growth forced by that. I would maybe put on half of what your normal annual increment is now, the other half maybe in the middle of May when growth is taking place, so that it sustains it on into summer. So, again, kind of an open answer, but I would not be in a hurry to fertilize quite yet, but I'd sure have it on hand because we're only 2-3 weeks from the time that it's really good.
Okay, well, thanks. I think I'll divide that work up.
I think that's smart, Dan. Anytime we can divide our yard work up, it adds to the pleasure of the game.
Dan, thanks so much for calling. Always good to hear from our buddy Dan over in Zanesville. Again, our toll-free number is 1-866-PLANT TALK with 2 T's, or 1-866-752-6882. And as we mentioned, you can always email Fred a question. It's fred@planttalkradio.com, or just go to our website, planttalkradio.com, and click on the Ask Fred button. And we did get a couple of emails in this week, and both of them have to do with starting seeds.
Interesting. Okay.
And I guess people are getting anxious about that time.
They are.
Holly wrote in, and she says, I'm ready to plant tomato from seed. How soon should I get those started? And would you start those in a soilless mix or in potting soil?
Oh, boy. Well, let's start with the fact that I'm glad that she's anxious to get on about it. I think it is too soon, though. Now, it would depend on how she is equipped. If she has high-intensity lights and temperature control and et cetera, she could go ahead now. But I think we're almost a month early. Let's go from mid-May, May 15 for easy thinking, backwards, so that we don't put our tomatoes out until mid-May, a little later. So in mid-April and mid-March, I would think you'd wait until at least mid-March. Then if you have proper lighting circumstances where you can keep the seedlings growing but short, etc., I would say by then. I would also say that if she, and I would recommend at this point using well-developed topsoil, potting soil, and use that. I don't know. It sounds like Holly might be off on her first venture. Number one, high-intensity lights. Now, not hot bulbs, but bright light, and you want to bring the light right down to within 4 or 5 inches of the top of the seed tray at this point to tend to warm the soil. Moisten the soil but don't keep it wet, because when seedlings start to grow, the cuticle on that stem is about zero, so that every vermin in the soil, whether it's good soil or bad soil, can become active and can penetrate that stem. Damping off is the common term. It is a disease organism, and it can be devastating, because you think, I have seedlings today, and tomorrow you look and they're all gone. So let's just say I would wait based on, don't know where she's from, but anyhow, in Ohio, we don't put them out till the middle of May. So middle of April would give her a 4-week run to have nice seedlings up ready to plant. 1st of April would be the earliest that I would do it, and that's only if I have a lighting arrangement where I can keep high-intensity light on those seedlings up to 16 hours a day. I have an old table in the basement. I have seed trays. I have chains hanging from the floor joists, and I have a 4-foot lighting unit I haven't used in several years, but I can drop that down on the bottom of the chain, so to speak, and then as the seedlings grow, I can raise it up a link or two at a time so that I'm keeping light on those plants. And I say 16 hours a day. When we look at good growing time, we think of African violets, which have been proven over and over to require that much, and so on. I think I'm kind of jogging around an absolute answer, but I think she should wait. I think she should get all the stuff together at this point, and then April 1, April 15th, get them going. Otherwise, they'll be tending to get tall and straggly and a little bit of a management problem. And then as to soil, I'm not as versed in the soilless situation as I should be. So I'm still going to continue to use trays and a pencil to make a line with, and then poke the pencil in 1/4 of an inch and drop the seeds in, etc. That's my way. The soilless I'm really not as familiar with. But when it comes to soilless, I watched a professional person, a doctorate level over at O.M. Scott 50 years ago. He had grown grass seed on an ink blotter. The ink blotter, of course, was moistened with water. The seeds were laid on top. The lights were dropped down low. And he was growing a crop of whatever they were right there on a tabletop with, I don't know, how thick is an ink blotter? A 32nd of an inch, maybe at the very most. He was growing them right then and there. So there's not much that you can do other than start too soon, I think, not have sufficient light on them, and then be cautious in watering. Certainly you want to keep the moisture, the mixture moist, but I would water so that there's a drying period. Probably watering every 3rd day with a mist might be about the best way to go about that. So I hope that will get Holly off the right direction, and if she gets a surplus of seedlings, we'll send her our address real quick, because I don't usually start mine anymore.
Yeah, I just go buy them at the nursery.
Yep.
Can you start them from like fresh tomato? Can you use the seeds and get them started?
Yeah. Oh, come on. The word is escaping me. They're old-time varieties. Heritage.
The heritage,
is one of the terms. Yes, those tomatoes.
Heirloom.
Heirloom is, sorry, that's the choice word. Heirloom is a plant that can indeed pollinate itself. It's a very stable, whatever it's called is going to stay that way as long as you take care of them. Now, there can be some variation along the way, I'm sure. And a seedsman would know which ones to pick off once they start growing, etc. But by all means, Mark, I've done it, as a matter of fact, and I almost used the ink blotter, but I went differently. My I'll call him great uncle, became a hydroponic grower because he moved in off the farm to a patio in town. But he grew what he called Norm's tomato. It was one that he found way back in his youth. He planted the seeds every year and had one heck of a crop. They weren't a very good-looking plant, but boy, did they have a good flavor. And once it's in a sandwich, 2 slices of bread and lettuce on top, you can't tell whether it's good looking or not.
Oh, who cares what they look like? Absolutely. Once again, our toll-free number, if you'd like to give us a call this morning, 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's. More from Fred coming up. Stick with us.
With winter weather here, it's time to start your indoor gardening with the right supplies and gardening expertise from HYGROWPONICS in New Hilliard. Whether you're a first-time gardener or a lifelong enthusiast, they're here to help you. HYGROWPONICS offers eco-friendly and organic equipment and advice to make your indoor gardening a success. Find out more on their website, HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. That's HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. You can also find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with links on their website. HYGROWPONICS, your local gardening supplier.
And welcome back to the program. Mark News here alongside Fred Howard, the Ohio nurseryman. 1-866-PLANT-TALK is our toll-free number. We did get another email question having to do with seed starting, and this came from Dave, and he says, I wanted to start a wildflower patch in my backyard this year. When can I plant those seeds, or would you start them indoors first?
Okay. Depends. Part of that answer depends on how large a patch he's talking about. If he's talking, call it 20 by 20, then he could conceivably get enough plants going properly to do them indoors and put them out again. I would wait until about the 15th of May. However, if he's going more than 20 by 20, 400 square feet, I would seed directly. Now, I have listened about an experiment done by a highway department, and I don't have all the details, but I know at one point they went out and, let's just say, cut the tops off of a bunch of stuff that was along the roadside and then seeded the wildflowers into it. Well, hello, it was a waste of time and money. They finally learned to go in with a rotavator, cultivator, whatever, and work up that soil at least 3 inches deep, as you would for most anything else. And deeper, of course, would be better. Then the next thing is wildflowers, many are annuals that seed themselves, of course, and then many are indeed perennials. And it takes, from what I've been told, about 3 years to get a wildflower garden going. So I guess I'm saying that to Dave as a matter of caution. Don't give up too soon. Do cultivate the area you're going to plant. And I don't think I would over-improve the soil, because most of the roadsides that have wildflowers, most of the wildflowers in the prairie never had any attention from mankind in the first place. So I would not overdo the situation. However, I would still, in his case, probably run a rototiller through 3 or so inches deep. I would not hesitate to throw some compost in that area or buy some material. I would not hesitate to use approximately a 10-6-4 fertilizer scattered over the surface at the recommended rate on the bag. Even to the extent if he's not going to a large area, he could use a slow release type that would keep the seedlings coming on. Then I guess I would advise caution in the selection of seeds. Do buy something for our, I'll call it, marketplace. There are several good wildflower seed companies out there. I can't name any right at the moment, but I know they're out there. They compete with each other in multiple thousands of seedlings and so on. So caution there. Do get the area worked up. You will get, I don't know how many hundreds of kinds of weeds coming into that area, but so too are the wildflowers coming along. Some of what we would call a weed may well be a wildflower. So for that first year or two, except for thistles and something nasty as that is, I would let the plants grow. And then you come to cutting them down. Out in the prairie, it used to burn off, etc. But Dan, I would encourage you to do that. Have fun with it. Be patient with it, because it takes about 3 years to get to the crop that was pictured on the container. I mean, you have to give it time to work itself out. Plus, your efforts, and then do a little reading up, because I can only help you so much. Many, many years ago, a church bought a considerable property that they used initially to get going, and then they had what to do with that back 40, so to speak, and they planted it in wildflowers. It was magnificent. However, when it comes to enjoying wildflowers, know that depending on the mixture you buy, you may have to look up to the flower. You may have to reach up to pick it, because some of the prairie blends are really tall, vigorous plants. So
it may also look like a patch of weeds for a while.
They do.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they look much like a patch of weeds. I can't name it, matters not. Right near Columbus, on the northwest border, there is an old cemetery that the state of Ohio, I guess, became heir to, and they have intentionally started a wildflower garden there that is truly magnificent, almost so dense you can't read the old headstones, and something blooming all the time. I've only been by it a very few times, didn't even know it existed until 2 years ago, but it's quite a thing. So, Dave, have fun, but read the packages and follow directions, a little tender loving care, and then lots and lots of patience, and I think you can have a beautiful area.
And not really to give us a commercial here, but one of our sponsors, Stoke Seeds. I was just looking at their wildflower mixes, and they even have a Midwestern mix. They have a Calliopeus mix,
yep.
And then they have one that I find is interesting. It's for pollinators. It's called their bee feed mix.
Well, that would. If you're going to try to help nature, that's where I would go right now, because bees are being decimated by their own problems.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
As well as mankind stepping in there and so on. And one of the ads that was run for Stokes said they've been around for several generations. Several, as best my math will do, is 7. Counting a generation as 20 years. They were originated in 1881, so we're 17 years into the 6th plus generation, and that's quite remarkable in many, many ways. So heavens knows they would know their seed, they would know what's in their blends, and that would be a good place for you to go, Dave.
Yeah, if you want their catalog, just go to stokeseeds.com, or you can go to planttalkradio.com and get some more information. But I thought I'd pull that up, because they have and they have them for also categorized for different parts of the country if you're looking at a wildflower mix.
Okay.
Yeah, so there you go. We still have time for your call this morning if you'd like to talk to Fred. 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's is the toll-free number, and that equates to 1-866-752-6882. More from Fred up next on Plant Talk. Stick with us.
With winter weather here, it's time to start your indoor gardening with the right supplies and gardening expertise from HYGROWPONICS in New Hilliard. Whether you're a first-time gardener or a lifelong enthusiast, they're here to help you. HYGROWPONICS offers eco-friendly and organic equipment and advice to make your indoor gardening a success. Find out more on their website, HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. That's HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. You can also find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with links on their website. HYGROWPONICS, your local gardening supplier.
And welcome back to the program. Mark News here alongside Fred Hauer, the Ohio nurseryman. And Fred, let's go back to the phone lines. Right. And Nancy's on with us. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning. How are you two?
We are wonderful.
Great. Well, here's what happened. Yesterday I was in a discount store, and they had rose plants for $2 each. And I couldn't resist. I brought home 2 of them. I know I can't plant them now. I don't have a garage. I put them in the basement in a bucket for right now, but I'm trying to decide, what is the window well better? What should I do with them, and when can I plant them?
Okay, you do have a quandary there, and the window well is a darn good idea, because you could, to a degree at least, manage the temperature in there, or down in there as it goes. Now, let me ask you, are these plants in foliage?
Yes, there's a tiny bit of foliage on them. They're wrapped in bags, and there's a couple baby green leaves on each one.
Okay. They are, of course, then activated physiologically, etc. I think to be in the bucket, we'll soak them up, but I wouldn't leave them in there very long, because you don't want to drown the few roots that are in there that are helping push this whole top. So go to either one large container, or if you have some old pots, that are possibly well drained and so on. If you don't have some potting soil, get some and plant them directly in that. And then I would put some, shredded bark mulch down in the bottom just to set them on a half an inch at the most. Then put the mulch in very, very loosely, or you could even use leaves. And again, I would go for oak leaves as much as possible, because in my compost pile, some of the oak leaves are still pretty well defined. Some are breaking down, of course, and so on. So anyhow, you will need to modify the temperature. The window well, I guess I would ask you approximately how deep?
Oh, about 2 feet, maybe 2.5.
Okay. Then I would think in terms of putting the pots down there. You could use straw instead of mulch, because you want to keep them from freezing and thawing fast. And right now, ground temperature down at 2 feet will be 50, 40 degrees. That'll help control the root growth, because you don't want to push too much top. So plant them up as if you were going to keep them in the pots for a long time, which will get them off to a good start. Individually, I would recommend, so that you can, by mid-May, when they, it would be earlier than that on a rose, that you can bring them out. They will already probably be sending up some shoots through the straw. What direction do these window wells face?
Hold on a second.
You're not alone.
South.
Okay.
South. Well, I have a south and a north one, but it'd be the south one.
Okay. There you'll have a little bit more trouble controlling the temperature. So you might even put some stakes, whatever, up around the window well, and throw either some muslin or some burlap or whatever over the tops of those sticks, so that it doesn't get too warm in there. Then all of a sudden the sun disappears and they freeze. That's going to be one of the things. For $2 a piece, you can't do anything but have fun. I would hope you win. And if they're just barely starting to break leaf, you still should be able to manage them, because getting them outdoors almost as quick as you can, hopefully yet this weekend, in the window wells. And even if you don't get the mulch and stuff around them initially, they'll be outside. Temperatures will start to hold them from major growth, and then flip the burlap on and off. You could, let's just say put it on and leave it alone too. But I would say have fun. You might get your heart broken, but for $4 you'll sure learn a big lesson on how to manage a plant in its temperature range.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome, Nancy, and good luck.
She had no idea what she was getting into when she
no, not at all. However,
roses, but that's kind of a fun thing to do.
It is a fun thing to do, and it is quite workable. Long as you pay some attention, don't put them in the window well and forget to water them later and so on. One of the people that I know that has been, I don't know about a bonsai aficionado, but he's pretty darn good at it. And he stores several of his bonsais down in window wells, where they have to have outdoor temperatures. They're regular Taxus or boxwood or whatever, so they have to go through a cold period, and he will put a little straw on top of them, sometimes not at all. He has several bricks on hand. He throws burlap over the top of the window well and just kind of uses the bricks only to hold the edges of the burlap down so that it controls the light. Right now, my bonsais are literally buried in a pile of leaves. I will have to be careful in another month, because they're going to try to grow as the temperature comes up and stays up. Right now, they're modified at, I don't even know what, but they would be frozen upon occasion, but they wouldn't be frozen very hard, because they're in their pots. The pots are sitting on the ground, and I just gently throw some oak leaves over the top to the point I can't see them. Every several weeks I check, and I have a little pile of oak leaves. If the pile has settled from the weight of snow or rain or whatever, I throw a little bit more on, and you can do the same thing then in a confined space like a window well. So I hope Nancy has fun. The only thing, and I'm going back now to a reverse in the story, but a fellow was getting ready to do that, and he loved his cigars. And as he stuck his head down in the window with a stogie in his mouth, he smelled gas.
Uh-oh.
He said, I didn't know I could run so fast.
Yeah, I'll bet. Fred's to-do list is coming up next on Plant Talk. Stick with us.
With winter weather here, it's time to start your indoor gardening with the right supplies and gardening expertise from HYGROWPONICS in Hilliard. Whether you're a first-time gardener or a lifelong enthusiast, they're here to help you. HYGROWPONICS offers eco-friendly and organic equipment and advice to make your indoor gardening a success. Find out more on their website, HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. That's HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. You can also find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with links on their website. HYGROWPONICS, your local gardening supplier.
There are lots of things to do this time of year. Starts with a roaring fire and catalogs to read, pretty pictures to look at in what I call coffee table books. And then, if you happen to fall asleep, just be sure you put the cage in front of the fireplace before you go on up to bed. It is also time to think about ordering the lawn care products, or buy them and get them into the garage ready to go, or call for the service. Many of the lawn services keep coming until you tell them not to. That's a good thing in most parts. It's a good season to consider grub prevention. I was reading something recently that where the circumstances of last year could possibly indicate a greater number of grub problems this year. So let's just say, along with lawn care, think along those lines. We talked about grubs, 2 weeks ago, Mark, where timing and so on is important. And then, as to grubs and lawns, be writing down your lawn questions that I maybe can't answer or can't give as good an answer as Ashton Ritchie can, because he's going to be on the program on March 11th in let's just say my absence, and he's going to, his total background is all horticulture and outdoor, mainly lawns, but talk to him about whatever.
And we'll see you again next week for another edition of Plant Talk Radio.
Plant Talk has been sponsored by HYGROWPONICS, your local indoor gardening supplier. Visit their website, HYGROWPONICSOhio.com. If you have a question for Fred for a future show, go to our Facebook page and ask away. We value your comments about the show, so please tell us what you think by writing a review on iTunes. This helps others find out about Plant Talk. You can find out more about Plant Talk on our website at planttalkradio.com.